When you partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Chip Nones with Blue Reef Agri-Marketing out of Morton, Illinois. Nice to come on and talk about what's happening in the market. So Chip, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. We've had a heck of a run here the last 3 weeks, of fall. I mean, we're deep into November, but beautiful weather, sun shining. It's gonna all come crashing down and change next week. But boy, we've got a lot of field work done, all the crops out here in the general vicinity, and a lot of field work done, ready for next spring. So it's been a nice run, and I think everybody's ready. It's been a long harvest, a lot of work. I had a couple weather slowdowns, but I think people are geared up and ready for Turkey Day next week.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're the same way out here. It's been remarkably pleasant for this time of the year. Usually we've had 2 or 3 snows and a blizzard somewhere in the mix, and we had that one snow, that one cold snap that came through, but predominantly it's been nice sunny days and no real rain or anything to speak of. So it's been a very cooperative harvest so far, for sure. For sure.
Let's hope it stays like that. I know that we need some areas need some moisture, especially the Western Corn Belt, but I don't know. I never like to see it in the form of a bunch of snow, but I guess it does. It will take it one way or the other, but I don't know. The snow can hold off for a little while, as far as I'm concerned.
I hear you. I always after Thanksgiving, that's when it can snow.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. All right, man. So a lot to talk about today. I've watched this a million times on TV just to kind of get my head wrapped around. I've listened to many pundits talk about it and everything else, but President Xi Jinping from China showed up in San Francisco to go to the APAC Conference. Had his little private meeting with Joe Biden, and there's some very, very good catchphrases come out of that one. I'm sure Saturday Night Live is going to have a ball with that one. But if Xi showed up with this, like, I don't know where all this hostility is coming from. We've been friends for a long time, approached everything, and then all of us, now, because 2 months ago we were ready to go to war, and now all of a sudden we're best friends again. In your opinion, as you take a look at that situation, what do you think one of the biggest reasons, or some of the biggest reasons, you think Xi came to the table like that?
Well, I just think that's, as you look at the history of relations of anyone, not just U.S. and China, but China and anyone, I think that's, pretty common, pretty standard operating procedure there that, they kind of play the puppet game. Here's what my right hand's saying, and we're going to go ahead and do what we want with our left hand while we're talking a good game here. So I don't mean to be too cynical. They gave us some goodwill. They bought a bunch of beans ahead of that meeting. They bought a pretty healthy chunk of beef and pork too the week prior, and so there was a little bit of goodwill there. But at the end of the day, did anything get accomplished? And I don't know that there's anything definitive that came from that. I think maybe the bungle at the end of it with the dictator word being put out there, may have set the whole meeting back a little bit. It seemed to kind of anger the Chinese delegates after the fact there. So I don't know what will come out of it. I think it's a little bit of glad handling and typical Chinese relations, right? I don't think that that's anything different than what typically happens. And I think where the rubber meets the road is, we'll see if there's any changes or anything substantive that comes out of that. But there may be a lot of tail wagging all for nothing in the end result.
Yeah, that's when I saw that happen. It kind of it makes you think back. You're in the bar and your buddy's running his mouth, and you look over to the guy. Hey, he's drunk, guys. All right, just give him a break. That's what it made me think of. So
she said she'd go out with you. Just stop talking now.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I'm just like, man, I cannot believe you said that. Of all the things that he could have said, but yeah.
Exactly. Just turn around and leave. You got her number. She said you could call her, but. Yeah. Nope. You had to stay there and keep yapping and mess it up.
Ruined it, bro. Good job. But yeah, so that was a crazy thing, and we'll see what comes from that. But a couple other things come out. So we got some rain coming in Brazil. That's something that's been a hot topic here of late as you watch what's going on there. Kind of sounds like it's all for naught in some cases as you look at some long-term forecasts. But Chip, what are you seeing happen down there with that?
Yeah, we took about almost 60 cents out of the bean market from the highs of this week to where we closed this afternoon on Friday. So extracting a little bit of weather premium. We haven't really done any damage to the long-term charts. They are going to get some rain, it looks like, maybe up to 3+ inches in some areas that really need it. In some of those areas, it's going to be really the first nice rain they've had in essentially 2 months. So they've got some serious issues down there with some of the beans that are already in the ground, need replanted or really have been dinged by the drought. They had record high temperatures, but there's no question they're going to get some rain. They took a little weather premium out of the bean market. The soy meal market also saw some profit taking the end of the week, but these long range weather models are kind of still leaning that this isn't a change of pattern. This is just kind of a isolated shower activity in a much longer hot dry period that looks like it could last well into December. And the longer that lasts into December, the more that really could curtail their production potential. And it's early on and it's a rainforest and it's always going to rain, right? But this is kind of a historic deal on what looks to be an ongoing El Nino situation that's very, very strong. And so we'll see what happens. Next week is a short week with Thanksgiving. So we've got a regular close Wednesday, no markets Thursday, no night markets Thursday, and then the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Central on Friday, but closes early Friday, I believe at 12:15 Central. So we've got a really chopped up week next week, kind of holiday volume, and if there's some money flowing one way or the other, it can really push things. So that forecast is really going to be closely watched Sunday night and Monday morning to see, how much rain fell, and are we flipping right back to hot dry again, or are there some follow-up rains in that forecast? So there's, I guess, point being, there's still a lot of volatility potential out there in the bean market, and that'll be front and center next week.
Yep. And we've something else too that's kind of happened this week. We've been watching the interest rate situation. Obviously, we're seeing some of the stuff in the private markets places where you're seeing some of that interest rate slip. If you take a look at what's going on with the CPI and the PPI reports that came out, they came in significantly lower than what anyone expected them to come in at. And that's a good sign showing that what the Fed's doing is working. How much longer is the Fed going to keep things where they're at? So I guess thoughts there.
Yeah, that's something that maybe affected our prices here across our grain and livestock markets more than anything. There wasn't a lot of news fundamentally this week in the grains or the livestock markets, but the CPI report, the PPI report that you mentioned did come in, less inflation than expected, less than estimated, and kind of gets the financial markets thinking, okay, we've seen the end of the interest rate increases. We had a huge rally in the stock market over the last 2 weeks. You've seen interest rates correct quite a bit lower very quickly. I think the 10-year rate was down nearly 0.5% this week alone. The dollar index is at 3-month lows as you're kind of unwinding this whole inflation type trade, right? That featured short equities or stocks, long interest rates, short bond futures, which is inverse of the interest rates. So short futures, long rates, and long the dollar. And so you're unwinding some of that, and it's pressure in the dollar. It's kind of ignited the stock market higher, and you've had a steep correction lower in interest rates. And I think it also pulled some money back out of, it wasn't just the grain markets this week that were beat up. You saw some selling pressure across the livestock markets. A lot of the soft commodities got beat up. Crude oil, just pummeled this week. It came back on Friday, but just an ugly week in crude oil. And I think what's happening maybe is this longer term pool of money that came into commodities and hard assets as an inflation hedge now sees the all clear with these cooler CPI and PPI inflation reports, and you're seeing some money get pulled back out. And I think that's not a never ending long, it shouldn't be that long term of an issue. And so I think once that sifts out, and we might be a long way towards that, we could maybe find our footing a little bit better on the corn and the wheat market. Seem to have taken that, the worst. Obviously, we've got some weather premium in the bean market here because of the Brazil situation. But I think that this week's CPI and PPI report maybe caused some money flow, to be pulled out of the inflation trade. And I think that really, for a couple days, pressured the entire commodity sector. And not much news to talk about this week, pretty light volume, and it really kind of pressured corn and wheat especially.
Yep. All right. Cattle on feed report came out. Nothing too spectacular there, but we've been watching what this looks like and what this volume is. We've seen volume increase over the last couple of reports that come out. So I guess, Chip, what's this report look like to you?
Yeah, it's, if you think back a month ago to the previous cattle on feed report, really showed some bearish numbers there and really shocked the market. And it kind of set off some massive selling. And we saw a huge break in cattle prices. They seem to have stabilized this week, still getting a lot of volatility day to day, $2-3 swings back and forth. They were, a touch higher this week. But the cattle on feed came in a little higher than a year ago, but well under estimates. So the cattle on feed I'm looking at right now is 101.7. That was 0.3% below the average estimate. The placements were 2.2% below the average estimate at 103.8. So the numbers were bigger, but they didn't kind of show that worst case scenario. The placement number was 0.6% lower than the average at 97.5. So I think the worst case was averted. I think the fact that we sold off so hard the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe the worst has been seen. We've really stretched this cattle market, into a real oversold position. And I think if this cash market can hold it together, which is a little bit of a dicey situation, if we can see the cash market stabilize and bounce a little bit going into the end of the year, we could see a nice snapback in cattle. Not $20, but certainly $6 to $10 probably from where we close today is a possibility, and might set up the next real opportunity to hedge some cattle out into the early spring and the first quarter of 2024. So volatility is going to reign there for a while. You've seen some big daily ranges, just stuff that makes your head spin as fast as this cattle market moves. But I think at first glance, this cattle on feed report here, kind of averted the worst case scenario like we saw a month ago. It was bigger numbers, but that should have been well expected, and the numbers were well under what the average estimates were. So should have maybe averted some some of the most bearish cases here with this report this afternoon.
Okay. The hog market, man, I tell you what, they get an opportunity, they run a little bit, and then the rug gets pulled right out from underneath them. As you look what's going on there now, Chip, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We just when you think, one day you think, man, I wish I sold them and got some hedged, and the market sells off $1.50, and then the next day they're up $2, and you're like, man, I'm glad I didn't hedge them. They're going a lot higher. To me, even though the ranges are really choppy in here in a $5 or $6 range, that to me says we're at a fair value, right? So we're kind of searching for the next, big fundamental input here. I think we're at a fairly fair valued. We've seen obviously corn prices near the bottom of the range. We've seen meal come off its highs. And so I think that will continue. This typically isn't the time of year that, you push down into new lows in lean hogs anyway. So as you come, out of the holidays into the first part of next year, there ought to be some better opportunities here. But I think we need to have our finger on the trigger. And if you see some pushes into, multi-month highs here over the coming weeks, it really should be seen as an opportunity to get some risk taken off the table.
Right on. I got one thing I just came across here as I'm looking through this stuff. China's talking about exporting or stopping exports of nitrogen out of the country. Now, obviously, China and Russia and Ukraine are some of the biggest areas where that comes from. Now, the United States gets kind of mixed up into that whole, oh my God, the sky's falling thing. But we do produce the majority of our fertilizer here in the United States coming out of Canada with stuff out of Canada. But I guess looking at that, that's accurate. And that is I guess what's your thoughts? You start looking at Europe and those kind of countries that rely heavily on that area to supply those kind of inputs. I mean, what are your thoughts there? And do you feel like that's just more of a, hey, we're going to throw this in the face of the United States for a minute just because of what it is? Or do you feel like there's something bigger there?
Well, I think there's something bigger there, right? Because I think that back to what we were talking about before, the fact of the matter is that, China and Russia are buddy now and kind of the new,
right.
The new big dog in town. And so energy, fuel has been a weapon and used as a deterrent for a long time. And I think the one thing that's maybe new in this Ukraine-Russia situation is that now food is being kind of used as, part of the war. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely something that has some pretty serious implications. Now, all that being said, I think nitrogen fertilizer is down pretty substantially from a year ago. A lot of producers, that use fall applied anhydrous, talk about being on sale. Some of them lock that in essentially 2/3 of what it was the previous year. So there's been some big price decreases. I think most producers have been able to take advantage of that, at least partially. But it is something that really we need to watch, not just here, but worldwide. You mentioned in parts of Europe, that's big. There's more fertilizer, that's produced in that Middle East region as well. I wasn't even aware of it until this whole Israeli-Gaza thing, Palestinian thing kind of flared back up. But there's some fairly major, fertilizer production in that part of the world, and so I think that's something we need to kind of watch going forward. It could always be a little bit of a flashpoint. It can also be used as a little bit of a weapon, so to speak.
Oh, sure.
Is the production of that. So, to me, it just speaks back to what COVID taught us all. We need to produce more of what we use in this country, whether it's food, drugs, fertilizer, inputs, steel, whatever it is. I'm just a simple farm boy, Casey. Seems like we should be producing more of that domestically and rely less on people across the world that oftentimes aren't even friendly to us and are outright enemies.
Well, they're friends now. I don't know if you saw that on we're best buddies again. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this definitely. I mean, I agree with you 100%.
Sure,
100%.
Sounds good on paper.
It does. It really does sound good on paper. You watch some of this stuff happen, and you wonder how many times it has to happen before we step back and say, we're going to have to stop doing what we're doing here. Hang on a second. God dang it. Hang on.
Yeah, I think that it's going to take a while for people to get it. And, unfortunately, it's usually at the expense of having a little bit of pain before the general population gets it. So,
yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately,
that's for sure. Well, Chip, any final thoughts before we shut things down today?
No, I'd say, Casey, I don't know what your schedule's like next week, but Thanksgiving, most people are kind of post-harvest here and a lot to be thankful for. Pretty good yields in general. So if we don't talk, I think that you and your family and everybody listening hopefully has a great Thanksgiving. I love that. It's my favorite holiday. It just seems like it's low stress. It's not as much stress as
no
Christmas, and
no pressure.
you can really kind of relax, enjoy, and give thanks for what we've got, because there's a lot there. As much as I like to talk about the problems we have in the United States, there's still a lot to be thankful for. So I think that's the take home for me.
Nope. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family as well. And Thanksgiving's far and away one of my favorites because it's no pressure. The only thing you have to worry about is if you eat too much and if you fall asleep during the football game. That's about it.
That's right.
Wish they were all like that. That'd be making.
And Detroit, I'm just a general football fan, and Detroit's got something to cheer for this year.
They are looking pretty good. What's that coach's name? Dan something? Dan. It'll come to me in a second. Anyway, he's done a great job.
He is intense, man.
Yes, he is. He's done a great job, and his team is. You can tell they really like that guy. So it's fun to watch.
Fun to watch.
Yeah. Just wish Barry would have had something like that when he played there. That'd have been nice. You know what I mean? All right, man. Chip.
Well, I'm a Bears. I'm a dying heart Bears fan. So
you have to be.
Same thing about Walter.
Yeah.
A long history of pain in that organization.
Yeah, you have to be a pretty diehard Bears fan anymore, and they just can't.
It's pretty ugly this year.
They just can't pull it together. I don't know what the deal is, but they cannot. So, good times. Good times. Well, Chip, appreciate you being on, man. We'll talk again next time. If folks want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just give us a call at the office here in Morton. 309-550-7213 is our main office number, and love to chat with you about a marketing plan for the rest of your 23 crop, and I think 24 crop we didn't talk much about, but had some opportunities this week north of $13 on Nov 24 beans, so it's not too early to be thinking about what your risk management plan should be like for the 24 crop in here.
Sure. Yeah, 24 is going to be an interesting year. I think there's going to be as much fireworks up and down as there are in anything. I mean, I think it's just going to be a crazy fun time. So that's why we have you on here, Chip. Tell us what's
always something new. Always something new.
That's right. All right, Chip. Appreciate you being on, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Casey.
Right on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast. Go to I got a Snapchat now. It's at Moving Iron Podcast, big time. And I got the TikTok now too. It's at Moving Iron Podcast. Check that out as well.
Wow.
I'm really there. Plus, you can go watch the video version of this over on the YouTube channel, which is the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. So check it out there. So
there's no reason not to. You're worldwide now.
I'm everywhere now.
Every channel available.
I'm what they call global. So we're really coming along there nicely.
I like it.
That's why you hire someone that could do your social media, because I don't even know what half that stuff means. So good times. Good times. All right. So check that out there. Go to Moving Iron LLC for everything Moving Iron related. Got some big announcements coming up here over the next month or so. You'll see some stuff pop up. Plus, hopefully a new website will be up here by the end of the year. I got to get my end of stuff done so that can happen. So hopefully that happens here sooner than later. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Chip Nellinger. It's going to be Smart, folks. Out.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.